It's clear that the complexity of the car from numbers of lines of code is in the same ballpark as your Windows PC and your iPhone.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the VWID Talk Podcast. We are Wes and Jan. So glad you're here. So if you're passionate about Volkswagen EVs, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Don't forget you can also catch us on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple, and also Overdrive, and of course here on YouTube for a more visual experience. Today we are going to talk about software updates on your car. We have a really interesting experience because I was able to use our hobby shops tools to do a full software update like they do at the dealership, and Jan has also done it with over-the-air. So we're going to go over both scenarios and talk about what you can expect with over-the-air updates, at least on a Volkswagen. This is very different than other cars. I've got a 2023 ID4 and have not received an over-the-air update that I can recall. And then I was able to use the shop tools to update from version 3.2 to version 3.5. And then Jan?
So you updated yourself into the latest version. I have a 2021, so we do have like 5 years combined experience driving these cars.
Okay.
I received a major software update from the version 2 to version 3, and I liked the car before, and I loved the car after the 3.2 update because there were so many improvements. The infotainment booted very quickly. The IQ drive was much more smooth. There were some new features in charging. I felt like the progress that VW is making is really, really good. Then I had another set, like 3 over-the-air updates. And my understanding is that these were more to improve the upgradability to other over-the-air updates. Okay. And also the version 12 update caused my car, bricked my car. So it had to be towed. Well, but we'll talk about that.
Okay. But the point was those updates are not things that were really user noticeable.
Precisely. Yeah, they were. I couldn't tell about the new features or improved features.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And then for the 3.5 version, there was a offer that I got in my VW app, and we'll show that I requested that app, that the update through over-the-air update. It's still unclear if I will receive this or if I need to go to the dealer. So before we dive into the OTA, maybe let's step back a little bit and kind of understand the complexity, the architectures of our cars, because we don't want to go deep, but we'll show you some resources for those that are interested, and then we'll talk about Wes's experiences with the workshop upgrade.
Great. Okay. So
this is a slide that shows the complexity from a number of lines of code in cars. And this is from the Volkswagen newsroom, dates to March 2022, and they call it increasing significance of software and connectivity in the car. What I was surprised that this looks something like Golf Mark II, Mark III, that already had 50,000 lines of code. That probably was the fuel injection, ABS, and some other modules. Now, as the cars increase in complexity, and this looks like some Mark V, Mark VI,
so the Mark II would have been like early 90s, maybe. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then now we're looking at early 2000s.
2000s. Yes.
Okay.
And they say 1 to 3 million lines of code, mainly for control units and assistance systems, right? So as the cars kind of picked up on complexity. Now, the column that shows ID4 and also the Golf, the latest Golf, says it's between 10 to 100 million lines of code. And it's, of course, unclear to what code runs in your car versus in the cloud. But it's clear that the complexity of the car from numbers of lines of code is in the same ballpark as your Windows PC or your phone, your iPhone, right? So it's similar ballpark.
Wow.
So the software is definitely one level of complexity, but it also comes to the hardware architecture. From a hardware architecture, the cars actually comprise of multitude of different units. This is normally hidden to the user. You don't have to worry about it, but we also wanted to show you this because this plays a significant role during the upgrade, because the manufacturer has to upgrade all the units that fix a certain feature. So you, for example, see that my car has 46 units. When I did the diagnostics with VCDS, and this does not include the child modules like headlight switch or our favorite window switch. Those are connected also through a bus. So there is some code running on those as well. And then you see that ChatGPT did a great summarization of these units into powertrain and charging. And you see that there is a number of units, same as ADAS and security, comfort, convenience, infotainment, and connectivity. And so let's say if you want to add a feature into the car, it most likely needs to affect multiple different modules. And we'll say why this is a challenge. But to make this even more complex, there's 12 plus communication buses in our car. Different technologies, like the CAN buses, they're car specific. We even have Ethernet buses. We have countless LIN buses, etc. We don't have time to go through these in detail. But if you're really interested, there is a great VW self-study program, 871213C, that has the little topology and explanation about how this all works in the car.
I was even surprised when I saw this slide that you made, that 10 different CAN buses, and those are for things like the convenience system, right? Seat position and infotainment and things like that is a separate CAN bus from powertrain is a separate, but there's 10 of them, and I had no idea.
Yes. And they have multiple speeds, and they are usually kind of meeting in the CAN gateway, the address 19 or ICAS 1. Right. So, for example, the headlights have dedicated CAN bus. So there's so many. So there's so much complexity that we don't see.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, in summary, what this means, it means that the architecture is complex with many modules and many buses. Typically, there are multiple suppliers because Volkswagen doesn't make all these modules, does not design these modules, many of these modules, and does not code the software for these modules. So the challenge is that then if you want to add a feature, you have to work across multiple different companies, and they have to kind of agree on a one communication standard, if you will.
And these are companies like Bosch and Hella, and
Valero,
they make the modules because they're making the systems that these modules control as well. Volkswagen is not engineering all these things themselves, but these companies are often making things to Volkswagen's specifications.
Exactly.
So cool. Okay.
The great news is that this complexity is completely hidden to us on a daily drive. But the challenge is that it may hamper some user experiences, and especially when we're talking about software update, because the complexity is just enormous.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is there is a light at the end of the tunnel, which is so-called zonal architecture. You may have heard about VW's partnership with Rivian that simplifies this number of modules into, they have west, east, and south. So they have like 3 core zonal modules. And so it not only reduces the number of modules, but it also reduces the number of suppliers, right? Because now you own the entire software stack for that hardware that you're designing as well. Right. If you are interested, Sandy Munro did an awesome visual walkthrough with Rivian or with VWID on the zonal architecture. They literally had like 2 tables of this is the old architecture and this is the new zonal architecture. And then the same with Basim on software updates and controlling the entire software stack.
Right. Now, the other buzzword they're using about this zonal architecture, it's the same thing when they say the software-defined vehicle.
Yes.
When they talk about the software-defined vehicle, the zonal architecture, that's the same thing. And we just mean a smaller number of more powerful computers that can be updated more easily without having to integrate so many different modules from so many different suppliers. And that's one of the great things, like you said, Jan, about this Rivian partnership.
Exactly.
It's going to help them get that in gear.
Exactly.
I wanted to say one more thing about this zonal architecture. I think most of our tech friends get it, but this is not something that current vehicles will be upgraded to, right? This is something that new cars in the future are going to have this new architecture, but no software update is going to change this. This will mean 1 to 3 central computers instead of modules everywhere. So, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And of course, there's no official communication if even the refreshed MEB platform would already move into that zonal architecture, or if it would be still this current architecture. So great point, Wes. Thank you. So all right. So the next step, how the OTA process works, and this is from my experience. I've seen myself that Volkswagen has been improving this process. So pretty much like every OTA almost was a different experience. In the latest one, I got a toast or notification in my VW app that talks about the details of the software update, that talks about also the estimated download size, which I'm not sure why, because that's probably not that important. I'll explain why. And right here in the process, you can then accept this download. Once you accept this, then if you go to your gear tab in the My VW app, you would see that the over-the-air updates button would turn into green once you accept this. So that's the first step. Now, okay, so why we are talking about this app and car connectivity? Well, because remember, you accepted this here on the phone. You say, okay, I want that. What that does, it just notifies through internet Volkswagen's servers, let's keep it like that, hey, this user wants his or her car to be updated. Okay. Then when the car communicates with VW servers, they start sending those packages to your car. Once all those packages are downloaded, which takes some time, in my case, I'm waiting for 3 weeks, but I haven't seen something yet. So once it downloads, and this was a case for the older over-the-air update, I got this notification in my infotainment that the over-the-air update is available. And once your trip has ended, you can start with the upgrade. So what then happens if you unbuckle your seat? Then this is the goodbye screen, and you see this giant orange or yellow button here.
Gotcha.
Update available.
Now, what you showed us in the app just a few screens before was what it looks like currently when you're requesting your new over-the-air update.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What you're showing us here in your screenshots from your car was your update from your version 2 point whatever to 3.2.
So what I'm showing is all the over-the-air update that I got was on version 3 already. So this was not the workshop update. The workshop update was done in the workshop. I haven't had any experience with this.
I see. Okay.
Then
all right.
What I'm showing here is that this was, I'm not sure if it was the 3 to 12 or 3 to 13.
I'm sorry, I had forgotten.
One of those.
I'd forgotten that there was an update from 3.2 to 3. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There were. See, this was the fun that you didn't have. So how great it is to own a 2021 car.
Yeah.
So
but it does keep getting better. That's good.
I know it does, and I'm excited, but I'm worried a little bit as well. But we'll get to it. So once you click the update available, then it gives you a summary of what the update does, and I do recommend to read this at least 3 times. Just don't click the install because it has important information, like how long they expect this to finish. Some of the OTA updates did not have any notifications on the car or even in the app if the update is finished. So you don't want to guess. You want to know how long it should take. And then there are some important information like switch off parking lights and lock the car and leave far enough and etc. All right. And then you click install and then you wait.
You see that? That's how long you have to be alive.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Now, once it's done, either the time passed or you got some notification on your My VW app, you can come back to your car, or I came back to my car. And for example, on the latest update, OTA, the car disabled the proximity unlocking of the door. So I could not, even when I tried to open the car through the door, I could not, through the door handle, I could not. I had to unlock it physically through the button on the remote. So I was a little worried. I'm like, oh, that means that, but that was good. I went into the car and very important information here, complete. If, and then you're done. That's it. You hit OK. You may continue living your life with a new software update. Now,
lovely.
Lovely, exactly. Now, unfortunately, sometimes this word wouldn't be complete, but it would say failed. And unfortunately, I've been through that. And the only recourse at that time this was specifically for 3 to 12, was to have the car towed to the dealer.
Wow.
And the reason is, when you're wondering what this is, Jan, what you were thinking when you built this diagram, well, I actually asked ChatGPT to analyze the VCDS scan from my car right after I got this error. And so what you see, those red modules, like ABS brakes, like those are modules that don't communicate with the bus. So the central, the CAN gateway does not see those modules. So the car literally is not drivable. And so the only fix is to have the car towed to your dealer.
In that scenario, I'm sorry. Yep. I was going to say in that scenario where where it's not communicating with important safety modules, the only responsible thing to do is to not allow the car to be drivable. And so what were you about to say about it though?
So what I wanted to say that there is one caveat, and the caveat is that the car rear brakes remain engaged. There is no way to release the rear brakes.
Okay.
So if you're parking in a tight space, then think twice before running the update, because if it fails, somebody needs to pull your car from the garage.
Yeah.
So at this point, when the car was loaded, I was thinking the driver is a hero. He was able to pull the car from the garage. There's probably 10 inches on each side of the door. And this guy was professional. It's never fun to pull the car that has locked rear wheels. So keep that in mind. And then it came to the dealership, and I was able to pick it up the next day because they had the magical tools called ODIS, off-board diagnostic interface that Wes used during his recent update. So tell us what you've experienced.
Right. So that leads us right into this. I mean, I've been called brave and foolish, but it's one or the other or both. But we were able to get a copy of ODIS for our small hobby shop. Which is really just me and some friends.
We purchased a legal version of ODIS.
Right. We did. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, we licensed it through Volkswagen. I want to give you a disclaimer. This is not a do-it-yourself type of thing. And Volkswagen says that in the instructions. This is not for DIYers. It's for shop people. I needed to have a battery charger that can output 60 to 70 amps of charge current.
So 70, right? Your normal battery charger, 12-volt battery charger is like 6, maybe 10 amps, but not much. Right. This is like 7 times more. That's crazy.
And so, but you need a real beefy charger, not just a battery tender.
Yep.
And you need a Volkswagen VAS 6154 interface, a shop interface. Mm-hmm. And you need the licensed copy of ODIS. So, having said all that, this is really to give you perspective on what your poor technician at the dealership is having to deal with, and why this is taking them days when they're having to do this with other cars.
Yep.
So the first thing that it does, you have to use a special software tool to download all of the different software from Germany to update the multimedia system. This is also called the iCast 3 computer. It's your infotainment computer. And so it runs software where it downloads 22 gigabytes of data. So you need a 32 gig stick. And I have a gigabit fiber connection, and this took 2 hours. And in fact, I have it here in front of me. This is the USB. This is an SD card with a USB-A connector and a USB-A to USB-C adapter.
Oh, because our cars have the USB-C. Okay, that's the important
piece. Our cars only have USB-C, so you had to have that. Can't use USB hubs. It's got to be a direct connection. And this was a 32 gig SD card.
But technically, like, this is something that the shop does once or twice when they have all the SD potentially, right? Or do they need to run it for each individual car? Probably no.
No, that's and in fact, it says in the instructions that we're not going to reimburse you for this time, because once you do it once, you can use that on multiple cars. So the dealer, if they want multiple technicians, they're going to have to go through and create 3 or 4 of these sticks. But once you have them, you can use it on 100 cars. So the process is to create the USB stick, and then you go follow a bunch of safety steps, and you put it in your USB socket in your car. Pop your hood, you turn your hazard lights on, you have to leave the driver's door open, you have to have the software, the battery charger hooked up, all these things you go through. And luckily, after doing all that, it only takes about 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And mine completed successfully the first time. The second thing is to hook up the shop interface, the VAS 6154A interface, with your ODIS shop computer, and you go through and it downloads these software modules from Germany again in real time. You have to log in with all of your ID, and then it updates all these different things. And in my case, it was 17 different modules that it updated the firmware on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, this whole time you're watching for the voltage, and it's difficult to sit there and watch something for hours
for that long.
And this was probably a 2-hour process as well.
Wow. Okay.
you know, you have to have the battery tender hooked up. You have to have the door open, the driver's door open. You have to have the flashers on. You have to have the hood open. So all these steps I was very careful to follow exactly. And then finally, the third step is only about an hour, and that is configuring all the modules that you just updated. And it's funny that what you mentioned, Jan, about the unlocking the car, I noticed the same thing.
Okay.
That I was worried at first because my doors wouldn't open, and finally I was like, oh yeah, I've got it unlocked. It's been so long since you've had to use an unlock button, but you use it and everything worked fine. So yeah, it was a little bit scary. The car starts making noises, and every time
at what point was it? You called me, and the noisemaker of the car was like, wee, right? So I can imagine doing this in the driveway where like neighbors like, what are you doing?
Yes. Well, and I could also imagine it driving the poor technicians at Volkswagen insane.
Doing like 3-4 at the same time?
For 3 hours, this noise. I mean, hopefully they have ear protection in there. Everything else, I followed the instructions exactly.
Yeah. And when you say the instructions, we will link them down here below. From NTSH, you can download a PDF file that has 32 pages that walks through this process. And you won't believe how many stop signs, how many notes, and how many danger zones you have to nicely walk around. So again, we just totally admire those technicians that do it day in, day out. Right. And the PDF also mentioned that there was roughly 100,000 vehicles across US and Canada that were impacted by this specific software update. So kudos to them.
And so this is what I saw during the USB update. You can see that I've got my hood open, the bonnet, if you will.
See. Oh, that's a hood. I see. That's your hood open. So this is, looking at the road.
And there's my gas strut from that I installed from frunk.at. So software update is in progress. It's updating the MCU. This is the infotainment system.
Okay. Then the ODIS, and we did do like a smaller screenshot, so we don't show the user interface of ODIS. The rest of ODIS is not important. What is important is the output, right?
Right. Yeah.
And this is probably the big sign of relief, right?
And so, this was, so just to recap, I mean, what I did first is update the infotainment with USB. Then you have to do a bus sleep for 15 minutes.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay.
Which and so this is something your poor technician is having to do. Then you do the firmware updates
and
the
bus
modules.
Sleep. The bus sleep is that you lock the car, and you leave.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's because of all the stuff we're doing here. You have to disconnect the battery tender. You have to close the bonnet, turn off the flashers, lock the car, walk away, and keep both keys at least 20 meters from the car. We had to do that between the infotainment update and the firmware update. And then you have to do it again. Between the firmware update and the configuration. And you're supposed to do it a third time, but I just locked the car and went to sleep after that. So, and lucky for me, everything went well. So this is the first step, updating the firmware on all the modules. But everything flashed okay. And, and hopefully that's because we followed all the steps very carefully. But sometimes one of these steps will fail. And in the software, if you click next, it will go back and try to reflash. So sometimes the technicians at the dealership, you'll have 3 or 4 modules that fail, and you have to say, try again. And it won't redo every single one, but it'll go through the checklist and say, this was already done. 3's already done. Right. And then it says, okay, here's 7. I'm going to try that one again, and hopefully it succeeds.
That makes sense.
But luckily, all of mine succeeded the first time. So
because on the over-the-air update, it didn't have the specific failure that I had on my car. There was no retry option. So this is smarter. Okay. So
and that's a real shame, because you would think that if it already has the software downloaded, it should just be able to go through the process, So because all the dealer did is what I just did. They just went through and did it in their shop.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So all the modules flashed firmware, and then we had to bus sleep and wait another 15, 20 minutes, come back, pop the bonnet, put the battery charger back on, open the door, turn on the flashers, and it's doing all the configuration. I actually do not know what DSDL2 is.
So if you know, let us know.
Please do.
Cool.
Yeah, but you can see down at the bottom that one thing, DSDL2 on my application server 3 infotainment, that's the ICAS 3 computer, was not okay, but everything else was.
Cool.
And it didn't seem to think it needed to be fixed, because I went back through and did it again, and it said, no, don't worry about it.
Okay.
So,
cool.
So it was a complicated process. This is not something I would do at home. This is really to give you sympathy for the techs at your dealer and why it takes them a day or two, to do all this. So, exactly. You can see you can see everything that's involved in the architecture, and you can see what what Jan went through, and most of these over-the-air updates luckily go great. But sometimes
99%, but the 1%,
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. So we talked about the software, a little bit about the software complexity of our cars and the hardware complexity. We talked about over-the-air update, and Wes talked about the workshop grade update that he tried on his car. So please subscribe and also turn on the notification bell if you want to be notified about the next episode. And in the meantime, follow us on VWID Talk. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Thanks.